So, we're going to be making a fragment of a building, a floor, two walls with an opening out of card. Just made out of card, hand modelling skills, no templates, all cut and stuck together. It won't be perfect the first time, you'll make mistakes, but with card modelling, it's really easy to adjust, redo, tweak things as you go along. So we're making card models. So obviously, we need some card. But what card do we choose? Well, ultimately, the brand doesn't really matter. You may find a particular brand or a particular shop that sells something that you like. But what's really important is understanding what the qualities of different card are. The first and most important thing to think about is the weight, or the GSM of the card. This C-White card, which is actually sold as cartridge paper, is 220 GSM. I would say 200, 220 is the smallest you want to go for accurate scale model making. Anything thinner tends to just be a little bit too flexible. So this card has a thickness of like nice paper. You may, however, want to go a bit thicker. Card's going to be a little bit more expensive, but say 300. If I can, I always try and go for 300, but it does tend to be a little bit slower to cut, just because you may not cut through it in the first cut with a scalpel. This particular card is watercolor paper. So as you can possibly see here is a texture to that card. You may not want that texture, so you may want a smooth finish to your card. Either way, you know you want something 200 to 300 GSM. That's a sort of sweet spot for card model making. What tools do we need? Well, they're the same tools, the basic tools that we recommend for all model making. PVA glue, wood glue. This brand is EvoStick. Swan Morton scalpel number 3 with 10A blades. A metal ruler, at least 30 centimeters for most model making tasks. Sometimes it's nice to have the smaller ones, and for big models you do sometimes need the longer rulers. And for what we're doing today, occasionally it is nice to have a pencil. But really, we're not drawing, we're not templating everything. We're mainly just cutting and sticking. You've seen the end result. How do we get there? We're doing this model to think through common crafting skills needed with card models. It's about being neat and tidy. It's about being accurate, but it's not always about being perfect. It's about making and constructing the model without necessarily planning every single move that you're going to make. This isn't super fast, but it's also not slow. It's also flexible and adjustable. Because it's a card model, you can change your mind quite easily. Card is cheap, you can remake piece. Card is easy to cut, you can cut into something and change it or fix it if you made a mistake. Now this model is 1 to 50, and so we've got a set plan here of what measurements we're going to be using. So as we go through it, I'm going to be using these measurements. We've got walls that are 3.5 meters tall. It's a nice height of space. We've been generous here. Now, because it's 1 to 50, that translates to 70 millimeters. Our floor, which is a separate piece, is 12 millimeters tall. It's 600. Now, this is a bit abstract, but our models always look good with a solid base of some sort, with a thickness. The actual floor plate, the floor base, is going to be 3 meters by 3 meters, 3,000 millimeters. And that's 60 by 60 when we convert it to 1 to 50. We're going to put a window with reveals. We need to think about this corner. How are we going to meet these two walls together so it looks good and not strange? And how do we put all of these pieces together so that we've got the thickness? Because the floor is 12 mil and the walls are going to be 8 mil. They're going to be 400 millimeters at 1 to 1. And so 8 mil at 1 to 50. As we've done in the past, we're going to pour out glue onto a piece of card and then use a stick, another bit of card, to apply the glue. If we apply it from the bottle, it just uses too much. So, as ever, we apply it with a stick. And with PVA glue, less is more. Really remember that. Less is more. So we're going to start with our floor or our base. We're going to cut 2 squares, which are 60 by 60, and then we're going to join those 2 squares together with strips, these thin strips. This means that our 2 pieces of card sit nicely on top of each other. If we put pieces round the edge, that might also work, but it might also sag a bit in the middle. So these strips help give rigidity across the floor, across the base. The bonus is that you can leave these fins, these strips, visible, and they look quite architectural, they look intentional, they look structural, so they look nice in a model. If you put a piece over the end to cap it off, then you can hide them away as well. These fins are going to be 12 by 60, so they give that height of 12 mil that we're after. Now with card models, you don't have really a significant thickness. With this sort of card, you don't have a significant thickness to the card. So because of that, you can usually get away without having to compensate for the thickness of the edge of the card. Now, if we were making this model out of grey board or mount board, that has a real thickness to it. Maybe 1 mil, maybe 1.5 mil, maybe even 2 mil. At that point, you're going to have to adjust the size of your pieces to compensate when you join 2 pieces of card together. So another benefit of using this type of card for model making is you can usually ignore that. So as I'm measuring, I'm not drawing lines. The reason I'm not drawing lines is because it's unnecessary. It also takes longer and leaves pencil marks all over my model, which typically I don't want, so I might have to rub them out. So all I do is I find the start of where I'm going to cut and the end of where I'm going to cut. I just put a little mark. And then I'm going to use the edge of my card, which I know is square, to my advantage, and I'm going to mark the other. That's easy. Now, if I had a right angle, that would be very helpful right now, but it's not essential. I can do it by eye for this example, but if you want to be more accurate, I'd suggest a right angle. One tip is when you do cut out one piece and you want to replicate it, it's sometimes nice if those 2 pieces do match up. You know, we're doing a floor on another floor. So use the piece you've cut out as the template for the second piece that you're cutting. That makes sense, right? So they may not be individually perfect, but together they match up. To make the fins that go across the base between the 2 pieces, I'm going to cut those. They're 60 and then they're 12. I'm going to do 6 of them across here because that's nicely spaced every centimetre across the base. So we want to get a small amount of glue and run it along the edge of these. And then I can place just on the edge for the first one. And I want to keep it relatively clean and neat. These little details in a model that can really add to the quality. So I've got all my fins glued in, and then I can put the other piece on as well. So I'm just going to run glue across the top of these and stick those together. There's a bit of glue on that edge there which I don't like, so I'm just going to scrape it off. So with this base, I need to think about the walls. The walls sit on the base and they're constructed out of several pieces, outside and inside, and then some edges and a top piece. However, I want the wall on the outside to ideally go to the ground. It could sit here, but it's nicer if it goes to the ground. The other thing is think about the corner. So how are the corners of these going to join? So the inside face is the same length as the inside area, but the inside area is obviously smaller because we're sitting on the base. And the outside piece is the same size because it's the same size as the edge piece when these are sitting. So I could just quickly, for reference, I could sketch this out on here to roughly show what I'm trying to accomplish on top of this base. So if I place these on here, then I want one that's this size and one that's this size, and the same with this. But then structurally, it might be slightly stronger if one of these extended through. So I'm going to have one that's the full length, one that's shorter, and then two on the outside that are the same size with extra height. You could do this slightly differently, but ultimately we want something that is neat and strong. And if this was part of a bigger model, then that starts becoming more and more important. So here is a 8mm fin to go between these two pieces to form this wall. So I'm going to place it on here and create some fins. Now, before I move to putting this wall into place or putting this wall together, I need to think about the opening that I'm planning to put in here. I want to cut this now and assemble that together. Importantly, I need to do some reveals in the window, which add a level of detail which is really nice. So to accomplish this, I'm going to decide where this opening is going, and once I've cut one piece, I can then lay it over the other so that they line up. I have overshot the cut there, which is a bit of a mistake, but it's a neat cut, it's a neat hole, and so little mistakes like that, not the end of the world. Do keep these pieces, because they're going to come in handy in a moment. So I've now got my opening overlaid on top. Now, just like this piece, I need to add 8mm spacings between that to give me my wall thickness. Now it's nice to think about the edges and how they look. So with this piece, I've got closed edges here. I've then got an open edge here. And so I think what would be nice is if this edge is also open, because I think it will work quite nicely that these are closed and these are open. And I'm going to line it up to make my reveal. So it's adding thickness and also adding the reveal. So these pieces that we cut out and saved, they're the perfect size to do the reveal on the inside here. And now I've completed the spacing and the reveals around this window. So here are the pieces coming together on the corner. I want to put a cap across the top here just to tidy this up. Sometimes you might find things aren't perfectly lined up. So if this happens, just make small adjustments to fix it. Having a pair of scissors can be handy for this, to allow you just to sort of trim off bits that might just need adjusting. Now when I'm joining these pieces together, don't forget the contact points on the inside. So in this instance, I want to have some glue down this edge when I join it, as well as some glue down this edge. This is the hardest bit, getting those last pieces in. Slightly more things going on at once. So I've actually changed my mind. This hasn't worked well. I'm going to do one piece, full piece that's going to cap it off at the top, which will be neater. And so, you know, one of the benefits of PVA and glue is that you can very easily just cut things off and remove things. By following along and making your own version of this, you'll learn lots of basic card model making skills. You'll start practicing the making of models. It won't be perfect the first time, you'll make mistakes, but with card modeling, it's really easy to adjust, redo, tweak things as you go along.